In the softest hour, when daylight surrenders to the embrace of evening shadows, there exists a sacred threshold, a place where the busy world grows quiet, where thoughts slow like autumn leaves drifting to still water. Tonight, dear friend, we walk together along an ancient path, one worn smooth by countless seekers who have come before us, their footsteps like whispered prayers in the darkness. Before we begin this gentle journey into the heart of peace, if you find comfort in these calming wisdom stories, feel free to subscribe, give this video a like, and gently share in the comments where in the world you're listening from tonight. Your presence here, wherever you may be, whether beneath city lights or country stars, adds its own quiet light to our shared circle of contemplation. Picture, if you will, a monastery garden at twilight. Cherry blossoms drift on the evening breeze, each petal a small meditation, each fall a tiny teaching about letting go. An old monk walks slowly along a stone path, his footsteps silent as moonbeams, his breath synchronized with the rhythm of the universe itself. Somewhere in the distance, a temple bell rings once clear, pure, and then silence. The kind of silence that holds all sounds within it, the way darkness holds all colors. Incense curls upward from a small shrine, smoke rising. Like prayers made visible, like thoughts being released into the vast, accepting sky. And in this moment, in this breath between day and night, we begin to understand something fundamental. That peace is not something we must achieve, but something we must remember. Something we must stop covering with the endless chatter of our restless minds. Tonight, we explore the gentle art of letting go, not through force or struggle, but through the most natural thing in the world, surrender. Like a river returning to the sea, like breath returning to stillness, like a weary traveler finally finding home. Asterisk, asterisk, what is the sound of peace before thought arrives to name it? This question floats before us, like mist over a mountain lake at Tedious dawn, neither demanding an answer nor refusing one, simply existing in its own perfect completeness. It is the kind of question that the old Zen masters would pose, not to create confusion, but to invite us into a deeper listening, a listening that goes beyond the ears, beyond the mind, into the very heart of being itself. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast forest. The trees stretch endlessly before you, ancient and patient, their roots drinking from underground streams of wisdom. Each leaf catches the fading light differently, yet all are part of the same magnificent whole. You take a single step forward, and the soft earth yields beneath your feet, not in surrender, but in welcome. The forest path winds ahead, sometimes visible, sometimes hidden by gentle curves and shadows. Yet you know with absolute certainty that it leads exactly where you need to go. This is how we approach the great questions of existence, not with the harsh light of analysis, but with the soft glow of wonder. If we let go of everything, every worry, every plan, every story we tell ourselves about who we are and what we must accomplish, what remains? The question settles around us like evening mist, cool and refreshing, asking nothing, offering everything. Butterfly alights on a branch nearby, its wings painted with colors that have no names, only beauty. It rests for a moment in perfect stillness, neither hurrying toward the next flower nor lingering in the past moment's nectar. It simply is completely present in its butterfly-ness, teaching us more about enlightenment in its brief pause than volumes of philosophy could contain. We too are like this butterfly meant for such moments of pure presence, such exquisite simplicity. Yet somewhere along the way, we learn to complicate the gift of being alive. We learn to think about thinking, to worry about worrying, to make problems from the very solutions that surround us constantly. Our minds became like busy marketplaces, full of vendors calling out their wares. Remember this, worry about that, plan for this, regret that. But here now, In this sacred pause between breaths, we remember something our hearts have always known. The deepest peace is not found by adding anything to our experience, but by gently removing the barriers we have built around it. Like an archaeologist brushing dust from an ancient treasure, we don't create peace, we uncover it, reveal it, allow it to emerge from beneath the accumulated layers of unnecessary thinking. The trees around us sway gently in the evening breeze, their movement a slow dance of acceptance. They do not resist the wind, nor do they chase it. They simply bend and flow, remaining rooted while allowing themselves to move. This is the first teaching the forest offers. Resistance creates suffering. Acceptance creates peace. As we walk deeper into this contemplation, our footsteps become prayer. Our breathing becomes meditation. Our very presence becomes a bridge between the world of endless doing and the realm of perfect being. Each step takes us further from the land of what if and closer to the country of what is, that eternal present moment where all peace originates and to which all peace returns. The path curves gently ahead, disappearing around a bend lined with moss-covered stones and wildflowers that bloom unseen by anyone but the occasional deer or rabbit. Yet they bloom anyway, in perfect faithfulness to their own nature, teaching us that beauty needs no audience, wisdom needs no approval, peace needs no permission to simply be itself. What remains when we stop trying so hard to be somewhere else, someone else, someone else? The question echoes softly through the trees, patient as sunlight, persistent as flowing water, gentle as the breath that sustains us, even when we forget to be grateful for it. Asterisk, asterisk, in the gentle hills of ancient India, over 25 centuries ago, a young prince sat beneath a fig tree and made a discovery that would echo through the ages like ripples on an infinite pond. The Buddha, which simply means the awakened one, found something so beautifully simple that it takes a lifetime to fully understand, yet so immediately true that even a child can feel its resonance. He discovered that suffering is not caused by the challenges of life itself, but by our endless struggle against the way things are. Like a person caught in quicksand who makes their situation worse by fighting, we create our own mental prisons by resisting the natural flow of existence. This teaching, known as the First Noble Truth, arrives to us tonight not as doctrine to be memorized, but as gentle rain falling on the parched earth of our overwrought minds. Picture a lotus flower blooming in a quiet pond. Its roots sink deep into the muddy bottom, drawing nourishment from what appears to be darkness and decay. Yet from this unlikely foundation, something impossibly beautiful emerges, petals pure as moonlight, opening to the sun without any need to explain or justify their perfection. The lotus doesn't struggle against the mud, it transforms it into beauty. This is the Buddha's teaching made visible. Our difficulties, our confusions, even our tendency to overthink, these are not obstacles to peace, but the very compost from which wisdom grows. The Second Noble Truth whispers to us about the root of our mental restlessness. Like a detective following clues, the Buddha traced all suffering back to a single source: our constant craving for things to be different than they are. We want the pleasant experiences to last forever. We want the unpleasant ones to disappear immediately, and we want the neutral moments to be more exciting. This endless wanting, this perpetual mental reaching for something just out of grasp, is what keeps our minds spinning like prayer wheels in a windstorm. But here's where the teaching becomes as gentle as candlelight. This craving isn't something to fight against or feel guilty about. It's as natural as hunger or thirst, arising from our deepest instinct to survive and thrive. The Buddha simply noticed it, the way a naturalist might observe a bird building its nest with curiosity, with compassion, without judgment. A small stream runs alongside our forest path, its water clear as liquid starlight. Each drop that passes by is unique, yet part of an endless flow that has continued for millennia. The stream doesn't grasp at any particular moment, doesn't try to hold onto yesterday's raindrops or anticipate tomorrow's snowmelt. It simply flows, finding its way around obstacles with effortless grace, wearing down the hardest stones through gentle persistence rather than forceful resistance. This stream embodies the third noble truth. The complete cessation of suffering is possible, not through eliminating all challenges from life. That would be like trying to stop the weather, but through releasing our grip on how we think things should be. When we stop fighting the current, we discover we can swim. When we stop resisting the storm, we find shelter in its very eye. The fourth noble truth offers us a map for this journey, known as the Noble Eightfold Path. But tonight, instead of examining it like scholars, we absorb it like pilgrims, feeling its essence rather than analyzing its structure. Right understanding, seeing things as they truly are, not as our fears or desires paint them. Right intention, approaching life with kindness rather than force. Right speech, using words that heal rather than harm, that clarify rather than confuse. A owl calls softly from somewhere in the canopy above, its voice neither urgent nor casual, simply present in the way that wild things are present, completely committed to this moment without being trapped by it. The owl doesn't overthink its hunt or worry about tomorrow's meals. It exists in the eternal now that is every creature's birthright, the same eternal now that we civilized humans have somehow learned to step out of, like visitors forgetting we were once natives to this land of presence. Right action flows naturally from right understanding, not forced good behavior, but spontaneous kindness arising from seeing clearly. When we truly perceive the interconnectedness of all things, harming others becomes as impossible as deliberately cutting off our own hands. Right livelihood emerges when we align our work with our deepest values, finding ways to contribute rather than merely consume. The path winds slightly upward now, though so gradually we barely notice the change. Our legs carry us forward with the steady rhythm of pilgrims who have learned that the journey itself is the destination. Right effort, not the strange trying that exhausts us, but the gentle persistence of water wearing smooth the roughest stone. Like the steady breath that sustains us, right effort is both natural and intentional, both effortless and committed. Right mindfulness, the art of paying attention without commentary, of witnessing our own experience with the loving curiosity of a grandmother watching a sleeping grandchild. And right concentration, not the forced focus that gives us headaches, but the natural gathering of attention that happens when we become genuinely interested in what is actually here, right now. These teachings arrive to us across the centuries, like messages in bottles, cast into the ocean of time by someone who discovered something precious and wanted to share it. They wash up on the shore of our contemporary lives, still fresh, still relevant, still capable of transforming our relationship with our own minds. The evening air grows cooler, carrying with it the scent of night-blooming jasmine and the distant smoke of village fires. Somewhere, people are preparing for sleep, their daily concerns gradually dissolving like sugar stirred into warm tea. We too feel ourselves settling into this rhythm of natural rest. Our breathing slower now, our thoughts less insistent, our hearts more open to the timeless wisdom that flows around us like an invisible river of peace. Asterisk, asterisk. Let me tell you about Master Dogen, whose name means source of the way, though he might have laughed gently at such a grandiose title. Picture him in 13th century Japan, a young monk whose mind raced like autumn leaves in a windstorm, questions tumbling over questions until he could barely sleep for all the spiritual seeking that consumed him. Dogen had traveled all the way to China, crossing treacherous seas and wooden ships, seeking the perfect teacher who might finally quiet the endless commentary in his head. He studied with masters, memorized sutras, practiced meditation until his legs ached and his back screamed Yet still his mind chattered away like a marketplace at noon, analyzing every breath, judging every thought, turning even his spiritual practice into another form of beautiful suffering. One morning, just before dawn, Dogen sat in the meditation hall, watching his breath as he had been taught. The wooden floor was cold beneath him, and the first light of day filtered through paper screens like whispered secrets. Around him, other monks sat in perfect stillness, their silence so complete it seemed to have weight and presence of its own. As Dogen watched his breath, he began to notice something curious. He was watching his breath, watching his breath. He was thinking about breathing, layer upon layer of mental activity, like transparent veils piled one upon another, until the simple act of breathing had become as complicated as palace politics. Then, for just a moment, perhaps no longer than it takes a dewdrop to fall from a leaf, all the watching stopped. There was simply breathing, without anyone to observe it. No Dogen, no breath, no meditation hall, no spiritual seeking. Just the intimate, immediate reality of life living itself. When awareness returned to its usual patterns, Dogen began to laugh. Not the polite laughter of social situations, but the deep belly laugh of someone who has just discovered they've been searching frantically for the glasses that were sitting on top of their head all along. The other monks stirred slightly at this unusual sound, but their training kept them facing forward, though more than one smiled invisibly into their morning stillness. After the sitting period ended, Dogen approached his teacher, Master Rujing, with eyes bright as morning stars. "Teacher," he said, bowing deeply, "I think I have been making ZEN too complicated." The old master, whose beard was white as winter clouds and whose eyes held the depth of mountain lakes, simply nodded. "Body and mind dropped off," he said quietly. "Dropped off body and mind." This phrase Shinjin Datsuraku in Japanese became the heart of Dogen's teaching, but not in the way we might expect. He didn't mean that we must struggle to drop the body and mind, like casting off heavy clothing. He meant something far more gentle and natural, that body and mind are always already in the process of dropping off, like leaves falling in autumn, like breath releasing at the end of each exhale, like thoughts dissolving the moment we stop feeding them with our attention. Years later, when Dogen established his own monastery in the misty mountains of Japan, he would teach his students practice he called just sitting shikantaza, not sitting to achieve enlightenment, not sitting to stop thoughts, not sitting to become better people, but sitting the way a mountain sits, completely present, utterly natural, needing nothing, lacking nothing. In ZEN, he would tell them, his voice soft as pine needles settling on snow, "You are not trying to become Buddha. You are expressing the Buddha you already are." Like a mirror doesn't try to reflect, it simply reflects because that is its nature. One evening, as snow began to fall outside the monastery windows, a young monk approached Master Dogen with the same desperate seeking that Dogen himself had once carried across the sea. "Master," the monk said, "my mind is so busy I can barely sit for 5 minutes without being completely overwhelmed by thoughts. How can someone like me ever find peace?" Dogen gestured toward the window, where snowflakes were drifting down in the lamplight, each one unique, each one following its own perfect path to the ground. "Tell me," he said gently, "is that snow trying to be peaceful?" The monk watched the snow falling, some flakes dancing on air currents, some dropping straight down, some clinging briefly to the window before melting away. "No, master, it's just ... snowing." "Exactly," Dogen smiled. "Your thoughts are just thinking. Your breath is just breathing. Your Buddha nature is just Buddha-ing. You don't need to make any of it more peaceful than it already is." As the years passed, this understanding ripened in Dogen like fruit growing sweet on a tree that has never been in a hurry. He came to see that the deepest spiritual practice was not about transcending ordinary life, but about fully inhabiting Chopping vegetables was meditation. Washing bowls was ceremony. Sleeping was Buddha sleeping. Walking was Buddha walking. Even worrying was Buddha worrying perfect and complete, just as it was Dot in his final years. Dogen would often be found in the monastery garden, not in formal meditation, but simply standing. Among the vegetables he grew, watching the way cabbage grew into cabbage nests and radishes expressed their essential radish, nature without any self-improvement project or spiritual agenda. When students asked him about the meaning of life, he might point to a turnip and say, "This turnip is giving a wonderful Dharma talk right now. Are you listening?" And indeed, if you looked closely, you could see that the turnip was teaching something profound about being completely itself, without apology, growing according to its deepest nature, without comparing itself to the carrots or envying the elegant. Lettuce. The story of Master Dogen reaches across 8 centuries to touch our contemporary hearts with its gentle wisdom. In our age of endless self-improvement and spiritual seeking, his teaching arrives like a cool breeze on a sweltering day. You are already what you seek to become. The peace you search for is the very awareness that is searching. The Buddha you hope to discover is the one who is hoping right now. Tonight, as we settle into sleep, we carry with us this ancient understanding. We don't need to become peaceful. We need to stop doing the things that disturb the peace that is our birthright. Like learning to swim by relaxing into the water support rather than fighting against it. We find our way home by releasing the effort to be somewhere else. Asterisk. Close your eyes now, dear friend, and let us embark upon the most intimate journey of all, the gentle voyage inward, where the external world with all its demands and distractions gradually fades like candlelight at dawn, and we discover the vast, quiet country that has always existed within us, patiently waiting for our return. Begin by noticing your breath, not to control it or improve it, but simply to greet it like an old friend you haven't seen in far too long. Feel the cool air as it enters through your nostrils, carrying with it the essence of evening, perhaps the scent of distant flowers, or the clean smell of approaching rain, or simply the neutral sweetness of air that has traveled across continents. To arrive at this exact moment, in this exact place where you are breathing it in, your breath knows secrets that your thinking mind has forgotten. It knows how to nourish every cell in your body without any conscious direction from you. It knows how to release what is no longer needed without clinging or regret. It knows how to pause between inhalation and exhalation in that sacred space, where all of existence rests for just a heartbeat before beginning again. As you breathe, imagine that each exhale is releasing a small cloud of mental activity, all the planning and remembering and analyzing that has kept your mind busy like a beehive in summer. See these thoughts not as problems to be solved, but as butterflies, to be released, beautiful in their own way, but no longer needing to live in the closed room of your skull. With each out-breath, another small flock of mental butterflies finds its way to the open window and dissolves into the vast sky of pure awareness. Now, with each inhalation, you're breathing in something more subtle than air. You're breathing in the essence of presence itself. This presence has no thoughts about what you should be doing differently, no opinions about your past mistakes, no anxiety about future challenges. It is pure, accepting awareness, like sunlight that shines equally on flowers and weeds, on palaces and humble cottages, making no judgments, playing no favorites, simply illuminating whatever appears before it. Feel your body beginning to settle more deeply into whatever surface supports you. Bed, chair, floor, or earth. Notice how gravity is constantly embracing you, holding you with a gentleness that never tires, never asks for anything in return, never withdraws its support, no matter what kind of day you've had or what worries occupy your mind. This is unconditional. Love made physical. The planet itself offering you its constant, reliable embrace. As your body releases into this gravitational hug. Your mind, too, begins to settle like sediment in a still pond. The thoughts that were swirling and churning gradually slow their movement, and you begin to glimpse something that was always there beneath the mental activity. Stillness so profound it seems to extend infinitely in all directions. Like the silence between musical notes that makes the music possible. In this settling, you discover that you are not your thoughts any more than the sky is the clouds that pass through it. Thoughts arise like weather patterns in the vast space of consciousness, sometimes stormy, sometimes peaceful, sometimes dramatic, sometimes barely noticeable. But the sky itself remains unchanged, spacious enough to hold every possible weather pattern without being disturbed by any of them. You begin to sense that the part of you that is aware of thoughts is itself beyond thinking. The part of you that notices feelings is itself beyond feeling. The part of you that experiences the coming and going of all mental phenomena is itself as stable and unchanging as the deepest mountain, as constant as the space in which all things appear and disappear. This awareness is not something you need to create or achieve. It is what you are, what you have always been. Like a mirror that reflects everything but is stained by nothing. This pure consciousness is your deepest identity, more fundamental than your name, your history, your personality, your achievements, or your mistakes. Rest now in this recognition. You don't need to understand it intellectually or explain it to anyone. You don't need to make it into a spiritual accomplishment or worry about whether you're doing it right. Simply be the awareness that is naturally present, the way a candle flame is naturally luminous, the way water is naturally wet, the way space is naturally open. From this place of pure being, all the problems that seemed so urgent just moments ago reveal themselves to be like soap bubbles, impressive and attention-grabbing for a brief moment, but ultimately insubstantial, destined to pop on their own without any effort from you. The planning mind that was so concerned about tomorrow's challenges seems quaint now, like a child playing with toy soldiers, taking the game very seriously, but ultimately engaged in something that has no power to threaten the deeper reality of who you are. Feel yourself floating now in this ocean of being, weightless and free, supported by the same consciousness that supports the stars in their courses and the seasons in their turning. You are part of something infinitely larger than your individual story. Yet at the same time, you are the very center of your own universe, the still point around which all experience revolves. This is your natural state, not an altered state. This peace is not something special you've achieved through technique. It's simply what remains when you stop doing the unnecessary work of resisting what is already here. Like coming home after a long journey to find that home was exactly as you left it, patient and welcoming and unchanged by your absence. Asterisk, asterisk, in the heart of ancient wisdom traditions, there exists teachings so subtle they slip past the grasping mind like mist through fingers. So simple, they confound the complicated. Intellect, so obvious they hide in plain sight like stars invisible in daylight. Tonight, we explore these gentle mysteries, these cones that unlock not through force of understanding, but through the soft key of letting go. Consider this curious tale from the Zen tradition. A master was asked by his student, "What is Buddha?" The master replied, 3 pounds of flax. The student, expecting some profound metaphysical discourse, was bewildered. 3 pounds of flax? What could such an ordinary, mundane thing have to do with the ultimate reality? But here's the hidden teaching that sparkles like a jewel in morning dew. Buddha is not some distant, elevated state to be achieved through years of struggle. Buddha is the suckness of this very moment, the weight of flax in your hands, the feeling of cloth against your skin, the simple presence that animates every ordinary experience. The enlightenment we seek is not separate from the laundry we fold, the tea we drink, the breath we breathe without thinking. There's another story, whispered in monastery corridors for over 1,000 years, about a student who came to his teacher, carrying an elaborate question about the nature of emptiness. He had studied all the philosophical texts, memorized the technical terms, could debate the subtleties of Buddhist doctrine with scholarly precision. But his mind was like a room crammed full of furniture, so much knowledge that there was no space left for wisdom to enter. Teacher listened patiently to the student's complicated question, then picked up his teacup, empty now, except for a few leaves clinging to the bottom. "Tell me," he said gently, "what makes this cup useful?" The student, still thinking in philosophical categories, began to elaborate on the concept of void, the interdependence of form and emptiness, the relationship between being and non-being. The teacher smiled and poured fresh tea into the cup. "The emptiness," he said simply, "makes space for the tea." In that moment, the student understood something that no amount of study could have taught him. Emptiness is not a philosophical concept to be grasped, but a living space to be inhabited. The empty cup serves by being empty. The quiet mind serves by being quiet. We become useful not by filling ourselves with more information, but by creating space for life to flow through us naturally. Here's a secret that even many long-time meditators don't know. The Buddha himself, after his awakening, under the Bodhi tree, sat in silence for 7 weeks. Not teaching, not helping others, not spreading the Dharma, just sitting, like a mountain content to be a mountain, like a tree content to photosynthesize sunlight into itself. He wasn't being lazy or selfish, was demonstrating something crucial. Being comes before doing. Presence precedes action. And sometimes the most powerful thing we can offer the world is our own inner peace. During those 7 weeks, it's said that the gods grew worried. Surely the Buddha should be teaching, organizing, building institutions, writing books. But the Buddha simply sat, and his sitting was itself a teaching more profound than any words. He was showing us that awakened action arises naturally from awakened being. The way flowers bloom from roots that have found deep water. There's a peculiar practice in some ZEN monasteries where monks are given impossible tasks. "Bring me the sound of one hand clapping," a teacher might say, or "show me your original face before your parents were born." These aren't riddles to be solved through clever thinking. They're invitations to step outside the realm where problems and solutions exist, into the space where questions dissolve, not because they've been answered, but because the questioner has discovered they never really existed. One monk spent months trying to demonstrate the sound of one hand clapping. He clapped his hand against his thigh, against the wall, against stones and trees. He studied acoustics, meditated on silence, even tried clapping with his hand against thin air. Finally, exhausted and frustrated, he sat down and simply gave up. In that moment of complete surrender, he heard it, not a sound, but the vast silence in which all sounds arise and into which they return. He ran to his teacher, eyes bright with recognition, and before he could speak, the teacher nodded knowingly. "Ah," the teacher said, "you've stopped trying to clap and started listening." Here's perhaps the most delicious paradox of all. The harder we try to be peaceful, the more we disturb our natural peace. It's like trying to smooth water with your hand. The very effort creates the ripples you're trying to eliminate. Peace is not something we do. It's something we are when we stop doing so much. In Tibet, there's a teaching about sky-like mind, awareness that is like the open sky, vast enough to hold every cloud, every storm, every sunset, without being changed by any of them. This sky mind is not something you need to develop or cultivate. It's what's looking through your eyes right now. What's aware of these words? What remains constant while thoughts and feelings change like weather patterns? The masters point to this sky mind, not with fingers, but with paradoxes. What is the way? No way is the way. How do I find peace? Stop looking. When will I be enlightened? When you stop trying to be enlightened. These aren't clever word games. but practical instructions. Like a doctor prescribing rest for someone who is exhausted from trying too hard to sleep. As we drift deeper into this contemplation, we begin to understand why these teachings have survived. For thousands of years, they point to something that is timelessly true, eternally present, available right now in this very breath, this very heartbeat, this very moment of awareness. Reading these words: the Buddha you seek is the one seeking. The peace you want is the awareness that wants. The home you're trying to reach is where you've always been. Asterisk, asterisk, like a river that has carved the same path through stone for millennia. We return now to the heart of the Buddha's first teaching, not as doctrine to be memorized, but as living water, to drink deeply from in this moment, when the day's burdens are finally setting down their weight, and we can see clearly again. Suffering, the Buddha observed with the gentle precision of a physician examining symptoms, is not caused by the inevitable challenges that life presents to us. Rain falls on just and unjust alike. Seasons change without consulting our preferences. Bodies age regardless of our protest. Loved ones leave us through death or circumstance, or simple human fickleness. These are the natural movements of existence, no more inherently problematic than the tide coming in or going out, the suffering that keeps us awake at night, that churns in our bellies like undigested food, that makes our minds race like horses, pooped by thunder. This suffering is something far more subtle and far more within our influence. It arises not from what happens to us, but from our relationship to what happens to us. It's born from the stories we tell ourselves about what should be happening instead. Picture yourself walking along a peaceful forest path. The sun filters through leaves in patterns of light and shadow. Birds call from hidden branches. Your feet find their rhythm on the soft earth. Then suddenly, you trip over a root and stumble forward, scraping your hand on a tree trunk. In the first moment, there is simply the physical sensation, sharp, immediate, but fundamentally neutral, like any other sensation. But watch what happens next. The mind rushes in like concerned relatives at a hospital. I should have been more careful. Why wasn't I watching where I was going? This always happens to me. Now my hand will take forever to heal. What if it gets infected? I'll never be able to trust myself on these kinds of walks again. The initial pain from the scrape might last for minutes, but the suffering we create around it, the self-judgment, the catastrophic thinking, the stories about what this incident means about us as people, this can last for hours, days, even years if we're particularly gifted at mental elaboration. This is what the Buddha meant when he spoke of the second arrow. Life shoots the first arrow, the illness, the disappointment, the loss, the unexpected change. We can't always avoid these first arrows. They're part of the human condition. But we shoot ourselves with the second arrow, our resistance to the first arrow, our stories about what it means, our insistence that it shouldn't have happened, our elaborate mental commentary on the experience. Peace, then, is not the absence of first arrows. Peace is the wisdom not to shoot ourselves with second arrows. It's the deep understanding that our resistance to what is actually happening is what transforms pain into suffering, difficulty into torment, challenges into personal tragedies. Imagine sitting by a calm lake at sunset. The water is so still, it perfectly mirrors the sky, creating a seamless fusion between heaven and earth. Then a stone is thrown into the water. Ripples spread outward in concentric circles, disturbing the perfect reflection. But notice what happens. Next, the lake doesn't resist the ripples, doesn't try to smooth itself back to perfect stillness, doesn't harbor resentment against the stone or the hand that threw it. It simply allows the ripples to be ripples, and naturally, without any effort, the surface returns to mirror-like calm. Our minds are like this lake. Experiences are like stones thrown into the water. The initial ripples are natural, unavoidable, even beautiful in their own way. But when we resist the ripples, when we try to force the water back to stillness, When we create stories about why the stone shouldn't have been thrown, this is when the natural process of return to peace is interrupted. And what could have been a momentary disturbance becomes an ongoing storm. The deepest peace is not the peace of a lake. That no stones are ever thrown into such a lake would be stagnant, cut off from the dynamic flow of life. The deepest peace is the peace of a lake that can receive any stone, any ripple, and naturally return to stillness, because stillness is its fundamental nature. You are like this lake. Beneath all the surface activity, the thoughts, the emotions, the daily dramas, the worries and hopes and plans, there is a deeper stillness that cannot be disturbed by anything that happens on the surface. This stillness is not something you need to create or achieve. It's what you are at the deepest level, more fundamental than your personality, your history, your circumstances. Right now, as you rest in this understanding, you can feel this deeper stillness beneath the gentle waves of thoughts and sensations. It's the awareness in which thoughts appear and disappear, the space in which emotions arise and fade, the constant presence that remains unchanged while everything else flows and changes like weather, patterns across the sky. This is why the Buddha's teaching brings such profound relief. It's not asking you to become someone different, someone more spiritual, someone who never experiences difficulty. It's simply pointing out what is already true, that beneath all the surface turbulence, you are already the peace you seek. The lake of your being is already still. The challenge is not to create stillness, but to stop creating unnecessary waves. As we settle more deeply into this recognition, we begin to understand that peace is not a commodity to be acquired or a state to be maintained through constant vigilance. It's our natural condition, temporarily obscured by the clouds of mental activity, but always available the moment we stop feeding those clouds with our attention and resistance. Tonight, let this understanding seep into your bones like warm honey, dissolving the old habit of fighting with reality, melting the armor of resistance that you've worn for so long you forgot it wasn't part of your natural skin. You are the lake. You are the stillness. You are the peace that has never actually been disturbed, only temporarily forgotten. Asterisk, asterisk, in the mountains of ancient China, there lived a master whose hands were always open. Students would notice this curious detail, how he held his teacup, how he gestured while teaching, how he received gifts, how he said goodbye. Never grasping, never clinging, his fingers always relaxed and spacious, as if he were holding water that he knew would flow where it needed to go, regardless of his efforts to contain it. One day, a wealthy merchant came to visit this master, carrying with him a magnificent jade sculpture that had been in his family for generations. The piece was exquisite, carved by master artisans into the shape of a phoenix rising from flames, every feather detailed with microscopic precision, every curve polished to luminous perfection. "Master," the merchant said, "I want to give this to you as an offering, but I must confess, I am terrified to let it go. This jade phoenix has been the center of my life, my identity, my sense of security. When I look at it, I feel wealthy, important, connected to something greater than myself. But I know my attachment to it is causing me suffering. I think about it constantly, where it is, whether it's safe, what will happen to it when I die. Please help me learn to let go." The master received the jade phoenix in his open palms, cradling it with the same gentle attention he might give to a sleeping bird. He examined it closely, appreciating its beauty without any apparent desire to possess it. Then, to the merchant's horror, he walked to the edge of the cliff where his monastery perched and held the sculpture out over the 1,000-foot drop. "Master, no!" the merchant cried, lunging forward. But something in the master's eyes stopped him. "Tell me," the master said calmly, the jade phoenix still suspended in the empty air, "what exactly are you afraid will happen if I let this go?" The merchant's mind raced. "It will be destroyed, smashed into 1,000 pieces. All that beauty, all that craftsmanship, all that history gone forever. And then what? The master asked, his voice soft as morning mist. Then ... then I will have lost something precious. Something that made me who I am. Ah, the master smiled gently, still holding the sculpture over the abyss. And who would you be without this jade phoenix? The merchant started to answer, then stopped. He looked at the master, at the sculpture, at his own hands reaching desperately towards something that was already beyond his control. In that moment, something shifted. He saw clearly that his entire sense of self had become entangled with this object that he had been carrying, not just a beautiful carving but an invisible burden of identity and security that was far heavier than jade. I would be ... double quotes, he began, then paused, looking inward. I would be the same person who was here before I owned the phoenix. The same awareness that appreciated its beauty, the same heart that felt grateful for its presence, the same consciousness that is here right now, watching all of this unfold. The master smiled and gently brought the jade phoenix back from the edge, placing it softly on the ground between them. Now you can truly receive this gift, he said, because you are no longer grasping it. This is the paradox that lies at the heart of all Buddhist teaching about non-attachment. We can only truly possess what we are willing to lose. We can only fully receive what we hold with open hands. Like trying to grasp water, the tighter our grip, the more quickly what we cherish slips away. But letting go is not about forcing ourselves to care less or artificially detaching from life's beauty and meaning. True letting go is more like learning to love the way the sun loves freely, unconditionally, without needing anything in return. The sun doesn't withhold its light from flowers that will wilt by evening or from leaves that will fall in autumn. It gives completely, knowing that giving is its nature, not because it expects permanence in return. When we love someone, the mind immediately begins its familiar project. How can we keep this person forever? How can we guarantee they will never leave, never change, never disappoint us? We start building invisible cages of expectation and need, turning love into a form of beautiful imprisonment, beautiful for us, perhaps, but ultimately suffocating for everyone involved. The alternative is to love the way rain loves the earth deeply, nourishing, completely present, but without trying to control where each drop will land or how long it will remain. Rain doesn't fall with attachment. It falls with full commitment to the act of falling, then releases completely into whatever happens next. This is why parents who hold their children with open hands often find their children staying close by. Choice. While parents who cling desperately often find their children running toward the horizon as soon as they're old enough. This is why friendships that make space for change and growth tend to last decades, while relationships built on rigid expectations often shatter at the first sign of evolution. Letting go is not a one-time event, but a moment-by-moment practice, like learning to breathe or walk or see. Each exhale is a small death, a tiny letting go of the breath that just sustained us, trusting that another will come without our having to command it. Each step forward requires letting go of where we just were, releasing our foot from the ground behind us to place it on the ground ahead. Even now, as you read these words, you are practicing the art of letting go. Each word must be released for the next one to arise. Each thought must dissolve for new understanding to emerge. Each moment must be allowed to pass for the next moment to arrive. You are already a master of letting go. You've been practicing in every second of your life without even realizing it. The invitation of Buddhist wisdom is simply to do consciously what you've been doing unconsciously all along, releasing your grip on what was so that you can fully receive what is. Not because attachment is wrong or bad, but because letting go is the natural movement of life itself. And when we align with this movement, instead of fighting against it, we discover an ease and grace that makes every moment feel like coming home. Tonight, as sleep prepares to take you into its temporary embrace, notice how naturally you let go of the day, of consciousness itself, of the need to control anything at all. This is your deepest wisdom expressing itself, the wisdom that knows how to surrender, how to trust, how to release into the mystery of what comes next with complete confidence that whatever arises will be met with the same awareness that is meeting this very moment right now. Asterisk, asterisk, in the soft hours before dawn, when the world exists in that liminal space between sleeping and waking, there lives a quality of awareness that the ancient masters called awakening. Not awakening from sleep, but awakening within sleep, within dreams, within the very fabric of ordinary consciousness itself. This awakening is not a dramatic lightning bolt of enlightenment, but something far more intimate and gentle. The simple recognition of what has always been true, like noticing for the first time that you've been breathing your entire life without having to remember how. True freedom, the sages discovered, is not the ability to control our circumstances. That kind of freedom is always temporary, always dependent on external conditions aligning with our preferences. Real freedom is something far more profound and far more available. The recognition that we are the space in which all circumstances appear, the awareness that remains untouched by whatever dramas play out within it. Imagine you are watching a movie in a vast theater. On the screen, there might be scenes of great joy or terrible sorrow, magnificent adventures or quiet domestic moments, love stories or tales of loss. The screen itself is never damaged by the flames that appear to burn across it, never moistened by the tears that seem to fall upon it, never aged by the passage of time depicted in the story. The screen simply provides the neutral, unchanging space in which all stories can appear. You are like this screen. Your pure awareness is the unchanging backdrop against which all the stories of your life play out. The character in your personal movie with your name, your history, your personality, your challenges and achievements. This character is real and important, but it is not who you ultimately are. You are the awareness in which this character appears, the consciousness that gives life to this personal story. When we truly understand this, something extraordinary happens. We become free to fully engage with our human story without being trapped by it. We can care deeply about the character's journey without mistaking ourselves for the character. We can feel genuine emotions without believing that we are our emotions. We can have thoughts without assuming that we are our thoughts. This is what the Buddha discovered under the Bodhi tree. What Dogen realized in that moment when body and mind dropped away, what every sage throughout history has pointed toward. With different words, but the same essential recognition. You are already free, have always been free, and the sense of bondage comes only from mistaking yourself for something smaller than what you actually are. But this freedom is not an escape from human life. It's a complete embrace of human life from a different perspective. When you know yourself as the screen, you can fully enjoy the movie. When you recognize yourself as the sky, you can appreciate every kind of weather without needing to change it. When you realize you are the ocean, you can play freely as every wave without losing your essential depth and vastness. Asterisk, asterisk, a Zen master was once asked, what is the difference between an enlightened person and an unenlightened person? He replied, the enlightened person knows they are playing a role. The unenlightened person believes they are the role. This doesn't mean that awakened people become detached or uncaring. If anything, they become more fully engaged, more completely present, more genuinely loving, because they are no longer using their relationships and experiences to try to prove or protect or improve a separate self that they now know doesn't actually exist as they once imagined. When you know yourself as vast, open awareness, you don't need other people to behave in certain ways to make you feel secure. When you recognize your essential nature as peace itself, You don't need circumstances to be peaceful for you to experience inner calm. When you see that you are already whole, you don't need to acquire anything or achieve anything or become anything to be complete. This understanding brings tremendous compassion, both for yourself and for others. You see that everyone who is suffering from the same fundamental case of mistaken identity, believing themselves to be something smaller, more vulnerable, more separate than they actually are. Their anger, their fear, their desperation, their need to control all of it makes perfect sense when viewed from the perspective of someone who believes they are a fragile, isolated individual in a threatening world. But you also see, with crystal clarity, that this belief is like a dream within a dream, like someone having a nightmare about being chased by monsters while lying safe in their own bed. The fear is real, the experience is real, but the fundamental premise that they are actually in danger is based on a beautiful case of mistaken identity. Freedom, then, is not the absence of challenges or difficulties. Freedom is the unshakable, knowing that you are the unchanging awareness in which all challenges and difficulties appear. It's the recognition that you are the silent witness to your own life, the still center around which all experiences revolve, the space that is never cramped no matter how much appears within it. This freedom is available right now, in this moment, as you read these words. It doesn't require years of meditation or spiritual study or moral purification, though these practices can certainly help clear away the mental habits that obscure this recognition. Freedom is what you are when you stop doing the unnecessary work of being anything else. Notice, right now, the awareness that is aware of these words appearing in consciousness. Notice that this awareness has no weight, no color, no size, no age. It's not male or female, not successful or unsuccessful, not spiritual or unspiritual. It's simply aware, like empty space that can hold anything without being changed by anything. This awareness has been present for every moment of your life. It was there when you were 5 years old, looking at the world with wide eyes. It was there during your teenage confusion, your adult achievements and disappointments, your moments of great joy and deep sorrow. It has never aged, never been damaged, never been improved, or diminished by anything that has happened to you. This is your freedom, not the freedom to control your life, but the freedom to be the space in which your life unfolds. Not the freedom from experience, but the freedom to experience everything with the vast, loving acceptance of one who knows they cannot be threatened by anything that appears within their own infinite being. Asterisk, asterisk, in the heart of the Himalayas, where the air grows thin and the silence thick as honey, there stands a monastery so ancient that even the stones seem to hold memory like water holds moonlight. Here, in the highest meditation hall, sits a statue of the Buddha in perfect stillness. Not the stillness of something frozen or dead, but the dynamic stillness of something so completely alive that movement becomes unnecessary. The statue's eyes are half closed, gazing neither inward nor outward, but somehow seeing everything and nothing simultaneously. Its lips curve in the faintest suggestion of a smile, as if it has just remembered a joke so profound that laughter would be redundant. And its hands rest in the gesture of touching the earth, claiming the ground of being as witness to the deepest possible truth. But what is this truth that requires such profound stillness to recognize? What understanding is so subtle, so intimate, that it can only be discovered when all seeking stops, when all striving ceases, when the mind finally gives up its ancient project of trying to improve the present moment? Stillness in the Buddhist tradition is not the opposite of movement. It is the source from which all movement arises and to which all movement returns. Like the hub of a wheel that remains motionless while the rim spins, stillness is the unchanging center around which all of life's activities revolve. It is not empty in the sense of being vacant or barren, but empty in the sense of being so full that there is no room for anything extra, so complete that nothing needs to be added or taken away. This stillness exists at the very core of your being right now, beneath all the surface activities of thinking and feeling and planning and remembering. It's closer to you than your own breath, more intimate than your heartbeat, more fundamental than your name. You don't need to create this stillness through meditation or spiritual practice. You need only to stop covering it with unnecessary mental activity. Think of a snow globe that has been shaken vigorously. The water is cloudy with swirling flakes, the scene inside obscured by all the agitation. But if you simply set the globe down and wait, without adding any more shaking, the flakes naturally settle and the water becomes clear again. The clarity was always there, temporarily hidden by the turbulence, but never actually destroyed by it. Your mind is like this snow globe. The thoughts, worries, plans, and mental commentary are like the swirling flakes stirred up by the activities of daily life. But the clear, spacious awareness in which these thoughts appear, this is like the still water that remains unchanged whether the flakes are swirling or settled. You don't need to do anything to create this clarity. You need only to stop shaking the globe of your own consciousness. In this stillness, you discover something that revolutionizes your entire relationship with existence. You are not the one who thinks thoughts. You are the space in which thinking happens. You are not the one who feels emotions. You are the aware presence in which emotions arise and dissolve like weather patterns in the sky. You are not the one who experiences life. You are life experiencing itself through the temporary lens of what you call yourself. This recognition brings profound relief because it means you no longer have to manage your inner experience. You don't have to make your thoughts more positive, your emotions more balanced, your spiritual state more elevated. These things can take care of themselves, the way your breathing takes care of itself. Your heart takes care of itself. Your digestion takes care of itself. The deepest intelligence of existence is already operating within you, requiring no micromanagement from your personal will. In stillness, you also discover that silence is not the absence of sound, but the presence of perfect listening. When the mind becomes truly quiet, you hear things that were always there, but were masked by mental noise. The subtle hum of electricity in the walls, the distant sound of traffic like ocean waves, the soft rhythm of your own pulse, the way air moves in and out of your lungs like a gentle bellows, keeping the fire of life burning. And beneath even these sounds, you begin to perceive something even more intimate, the silence from which all sounds emerge and into which they dissolve. This is not an empty silence, but a pregnant silence, rich with potential, like the pause between musical notes that gives the melody its meaning, like the space between words that allows language to communicate. This silence is not separate from the sounds, it interpenetrates them. The way wetness interpenetrates water, or the way space interpenetrates everything that appears within it. You begin to understand that silence and sound are not opposites, but dance partners. Two aspects of the same fundamental mystery of consciousness, manifesting as both emptiness and fullness simultaneously. As you rest more deeply in this recognition, you notice that stillness is not a state you enter and exit, like stepping into and out of a room. Stillness is the constant background of all states, the unchanging context in which all changes occur. Whether you are agitated or peaceful, busy or resting, happy or sad, the awareness that notices these states remains as still and constant as space itself. This is why the deepest meditation is not about achieving a particular state of consciousness, but about recognizing the stateless awareness that is aware of all states. It's not about becoming still, but about noticing the stillness that was never disturbed. It's not about finding peace, but about seeing that you have never actually left the peace that is your essential nature. Tonight, as the boundaries between waking and sleeping begin to dissolve, you can rest in this understanding without needing to think about it or hold on to it as a concept. Let it be like a gentle fragrance that pervades your entire being without needing to be analyzed or captured. You are the stillness in which even sleep arises. You are the awareness that remains present whether consciousness is active or at rest. This is the deepest truth of stillness. It is not something you achieve through effort, but something you are reminded of through surrender. Like coming home. After a long journey to find that home was exactly as you left it, patient and welcoming and unchanged by your absence. Asterisk. There is a language that mountains speak that has no words, a conversation that rivers carry on with the sea that requires no translation, a dialogue between starlight and darkness that has been continuing for billions of years, without ever needing to pause for breath or explanation. Tonight, we listen to this ancient conversation, allowing its wordless wisdom to wash through us like moonlight through clear water dot in the Tibetan highlands, where the earth reaches toward heaven with such determination that the air itself becomes prayer. There flows a river that begins as a trickle of snowmelt from a glacier so old that it remembers when the mountains were young. This water has never been in a hurry. It has never worried about reaching the ocean on schedule, never compared its pace to other rivers, never judged itself for the occasional detour around boulders or the temporary stillness of pools where fish rest in the shade of overhanging willows. The river simply flows, following the path of least resistance, not out of laziness, but out of profound wisdom. It understands something that we civilized humans have forgotten, that the most direct path between 2 points is often not a straight line, but a curve that honors the contours of what is actually here, that works with the landscape rather than against it, that finds its way home not through force, but through patient persistence and responsive flexibility. Watch water closely, and you see the Buddha's teaching made liquid. Water never fights with what it encounters. It embraces rocks, flows around obstacles, finds the lowest places that other elements avoid. It is simultaneously the softest and most powerful force on earth, capable of wearing down mountains grain by grain, carving canyons that will outlast civilizations, yet gentle enough to cradle the smallest seed in its palm until roots can find bare way to soil. This is the teaching of Wu Wei, the Taoist principle that Buddhism absorbed like water soaking into earth. Action in accordance with the natural flow of things. Effort that is effortless. Doing that arises from being rather than from forcing. When we align with this principle, our lives begin to flow like rivers, finding their way to the sea, not without challenges or obstacles, but with a fundamental trust in the intelligence of existence itself, above this mountain river, in the thin air where earth meets sky. Stars write their ancient poetry across the darkness, in a script that has remained unchanged since consciousness first opened its eyes to wonder at the night. Each star is a sun like our own, burning with nuclear fire, so intense it would vaporize our planet in an instant, yet from this distance appearing as gentle points of light, like candles in the windows of distant houses, like the eyes of sleeping. Buddhas scattered across the face of infinity. The stars teach us about perspective. What seems overwhelmingly powerful and potentially destructive from one vantage point becomes beautiful and benign from another. The same ego that causes us so much suffering with its incessant demands and fears and stories about what should be happening instead of what is happening. This same ego, viewed from the perspective of vast awareness, becomes as harmless and temporary as a shadow cast by a passing cloud. Light from these stars has been traveling for years, decades, centuries, to reach your eyes in this moment. The starlight entering your pupils right now began its journey before you were born, perhaps before your grandparents were born, carrying with it the story of stellar birth and death, of cosmic cycles so vast they make human history seem like a single breath in an eternal meditation. Yet this ancient light is meeting your awareness right now. In this present moment that exists neither in the past nor the future, but in the eternal, now that is the only time that has ever existed or ever will exist. Past and future are constructions of thought, useful for planning and remembering, but ultimately as insubstantial as dreams within dreams. Only now is real, and now is where you have always lived, even when your mind was busy elsewhere. The mountains that give birth to this river and frame these stars know something about patience that our culture has largely forgotten. They have stood for millions of years, witnessing ice ages come and go, watching forests grow and die and grow again, observing the rise and fall of countless generations of creatures, including the brief appearance of humans with their bustling cities and urgent concerns. From the mountain's perspective, our most pressing problems are like weather patterns, intense while they last, but ultimately temporary, ultimately part of a larger process that is too vast and intelligent for any individual mind to comprehend fully. This doesn't make our human concerns less real or less important, but it places them in a context that can bring tremendous relief. When you identify yourself as a mountain of awareness, vast and stable and patient, the storms of emotion and thought become like weather patterns passing through your experience rather than threats to your essential well-being. You can allow them to be exactly what they are: temporary phenomena arising in the space of consciousness without needing to fix them, fight them, or make them permanent. The river continues its ancient conversation with gravity and stone. The stars continue their slow dance across the dome of night. The mountains continue their meditation on patience and perspective. And you, dear friend, continue to be the awareness in which rivers and stars and mountains all appear. The consciousness that gives meaning to distance and time and space. The silent witness that makes all experience possible. In this recognition, you discover that you are simultaneously the most intimate and the most universal thing imaginable. More intimate than breath, because you are what breathes. More universal than space, because you are what contains space. You are the mountain's patience, the river's flow, the star's light, the darkness that makes light visible, the silence that makes sound meaningful, the stillness that allows all movement to dance. As we drift deeper into this cosmic perspective, notice how naturally your personal concerns begin to settle into their proper proportion. They don't disappear, they remain real and worthy of attention, but they no longer eclipse the vast sky of being in which they appear, like clouds that seem to fill the entire sky when you are lying on your back looking up, but which reveal their true size when viewed from an airplane window. Your thoughts and worries show their temporary nature when seen from the perspective of infinite awareness.